Hello, welcome to another barely watched episode from my humble channel. This one's a bit different this week. I'm not actually going to be talking specifically about a book because basically I've not had enough time to read one this week. I work full time, a lot of hours, and I also, believe it or not, train for endurance cycling, and with work and cycling and various other like family issues, I don't always have the chance to do anything to do with my writing or making these videos. So I thought this week, instead of talking about a specific book, I would talk about the idea of dystopia, dystopian, dystopic themes, and and what it means. And I looked on Wikipedia, which is obviously a left-wing captured organisation, and but in this case, the information seemed to be broadly what I knew anyway. There's a lot of information there. There's actually some good recommendations for books that I've never read uh, on the genre, and also films as well that I've not seen. So uh, I, I've always been interested in dystopian stories. It I can't put my finger on it. It seems to capture my interest. And I was thinking about this. I was thinking about this as I was driving along, and when I was driving my crane, and like just thinking about it all the time. And I came to some conclusions. These conclusions can't really be tested. They're just opinion, really. Uh, and if anybody ever watches this, you're quite welcome to challenge it. I'm really not that bothered. It doesn't matter. We'll all be dead relatively soon, and I don't mean I'm predicting a nuclear war or anything. We just don't live very long, and unless we make a really big impression in history, our words and who we are just forgotten. That's just how it is. That's something we all have to accept. But anyway, I wrote a few notes which I will refer to now, and most dystopian fiction seems to be like a general central theme would be you've got a ruling elite and they enthrall the majority of the population. And that's interesting. So I'll talk about that for a minute. So if like I talked about the Legion of the Damned by Sven Hassel, that is about Nazi Germany. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a sniffle. It's probably this room's dusty. Don't worry, you won't catch COVID. So God, I hope that doesn't get the video taken off because I've said the C word. But yeah, in Nazi Germany, a lot of people, they'll watch the old videos of the Nuremberg rallies and stuff like that, and all the soldiers marching and going like this, and I won't do the salute, and you'd be forgiven for thinking that like every German was a Nazi, every German loved Hitler, and the whole country was behind it. But that just, when you really think about it, that just can't be true. Because when has it ever been in history that the entire population was behind its leader? You have a noisy, violent elite who rule, and they have people below them. Their minions are given more privilege and certain powers and prestige within that society, and they will do the dirty work, and they will have sub-minions, but below them, who really do the dirty work. I suppose you've got the sort of clerical minions, and then you've got the well, the managerial minions, clerical minions, and then, minions on the ground. It might be, anyway, I don't know how Nazi Germany really worked or didn't work, as it were. But, it's eventually get to the populace, and you'll have a group of brutal enforcers enforcing the ruling elites' ideas of what will make society a utopia for them. So it's utopia for the leaders, and because obviously when Hitler was everybody marching past, and they're all very neatly dressed, and you know his version of what humans should be. He's like thinking, "Fuck me, this is utopia, isn't it?" It's like, whoa, it's just how I dreamt it up. To lots of other people, it was like, oh shit, that's a dystopia. So really, it's just what you like and what you don't like, isn't it? Really, something that you don't like is a dystopia, and something you do like is a utopia. And touching there upon what people find. I mean, there would be people who looked at, say, 1960s Britain, and they would have seen film footage and the films, and news reports, and girls in short skirts, and people smoking weed, and doing all those like 60s things, riding around on scooters, uh, you know playing music, having fun, taking drugs. I think I said that, yeah, weed, but other things as well. And and people at that time in the 1960s would have looked at those films and gone, fuck me, that's a fucking dystopia. Oh my god, that woman's showing her legs. Oh my god, that woman's doing this. Oh my god, that bloke's not doing that. And they would have been in terror that that world would intrude on their world. Probably not the general population would think that. They'd probably think, fucking hell, that looks like good fun. Wish I could live there. And but there would have been a ruling elite, and then the various layers of coming down, with shit rolls downhill, doesn't it? So there would have been those people lower down, and they would have shared the same fears as their leaders, uh, and would have hated what they were seeing coming out of Britain and the United States and Europe during the 1960s. They would have thought it was a threat to their way of life. And then conversely, we would look at how they lived, and we'd be like, fuck me, they've got no freedom at all. They can't say what they want, they can't think what they want, they have to wear certain clothes, they're not allowed any kind of freedom at all, they're not allowed to learn this, they're not allowed to eat that. And we would call that a dystopia. So in some ways, a dystopia utopia is it's a fluid thing, and it really is dependent on what your particular tyranny is. you know, and I think that all societies involve some sort of tyranny. I mean, so what have I written here? Yeah, so I go on to here, like, I'm a parent, believe it or not, and I have 4 kids. And when you have your new family, shiny new family, babies, nappies, and you're a young person, you've got lots of vitality, and everything doesn't hurt like it does when you get older. And you have a shiny, glassy-eyed enthusiasm for how you're going to make a utopia. You're going to condition your kids and give them influences that you think will make them like you, and try and avoid influences that will make them not like you. And I don't mean not like you, I mean not the same as you. Because you realize that difference is conflict. You know, difference is conflict. And I think you haven't got to delve much into a book, a history book, to find that conformity equals strength. Uh, yeah, I would say that it's my opinion that conformity equals strength. When you have a very strong, tyrannical outlook and a power structure that does not tolerate any kind of dissent or difference, then that is powerful, because you have a group of people, say the leaders, the tyrants, can force a population to move in a certain way. And as they only have to give the people that they want to, the tyrants only have to give a few small concessions, and also because they can control what a population sees and knows about, they can lower the expectations of their populace. So they can control what they see, hear, and learn and know. And if you can do that, that's like perfect for your tyrant. Then they can say, well, people only eat once a day, so and they eat gruel made out of insects. Controversial. And we're not giving you any way of finding out that actually people have eaten and lived in a different way. And if you don't allow people to see that actually they should be really pissed off by eating cockroach gruel, they'll lap up the gruel and they'll ask for more. Because if you're only used to shit, you will accept shit. And if you are given a tiny little bit more shit, you'll be like, whoa, thank you for the shit. So that's kind of like, just my thoughts on Dystopia, really. If anybody's watching these, I'd be interested if you want to leave comments on anything I've said. I don't think there's. Yeah, I mean, maybe going back to the thing with families. I mean, I can remember my grandfather. He he's. I don't want to tell you the life history of my grandfather, but basically, as a young boy, his mother decided she was going to leave her husband, which was quite unusual in them days, 1920s, I suppose. And my grandfather lived with his father in a small stone cottage, with a thatch roof, no running water, no gas, no electricity, that kind of thing. And he didn't know any better, and he was happy. And he was, when he was, obviously I knew him as an adult, and he had a very, what would you call it, heroic, active, exciting collection of near-death experiences during World War II. And he came through it, obviously, and probably had a certain opinion of himself about how he'd made it, whether it was luck or, personal skills. I don't know. But he was very keen on passing down his knowledge. He could shoot, he could fish, he could gut an animal, he could cook it, he could build a wall, he could. Well, he was a master riveter at Harland and Wolff in Belfast. So to be a master riveter in those days, you had to know you weren't just riveting; you do other things as well. He was an expert in metalwork and that kind of thing. And so he thought he I was his grandchild, and he thought that he'd done reasonably well in life with what he'd been given, and so he wanted to pass on those skills. And one of those skills was angling, fishing. I was given this book in 1983 from my nan and granddad Watson. With all our love and best wishes for Xmas 1983. Beautiful writing as well. Don't know if you can see that. People used to take a lot more care in writing. My writing's terrible now. I mean, my writing's rubbish. But so yeah, and he'd taught his son, my dad, like how to shoot, how to fish, how to gut an animal, how to build things, engineering skills, how to do, you know, basic maintenance, that sort of thing. And if, you know, I guess the idea is that you teach your offspring what you know, and then they grow up and they're a bit like you, so you know that you're going to get on with them. You don't deliberately teach them something completely different, because then they'll be nothing like you, and you won't get on with them, because difference breeds division. I watched a film recently called I think it's called either Celebration or In Celebration, and it's got a cavalcade of famous British 1960s actors in it, and I forget who wrote it, but it was one of our, you know, brilliant writers that we had in the 60s. And it's about I think it's four sons. I think it's four sons, which is weird because I have four sons, and they come home for a wedding anniversary, their parents' wedding anniversary, and they've all got really fucking successful jobs, really, really done well. You know, one's a teacher, one's a trade union leader. How many joking? One is, oh, I forget, but they've all done really well. But their parents are, the father is a miner and he's in his 60s and he's still working, got a horrible hacking cough, smokes little roll-up cigarettes. His mum, their mum is like a super proud woman. You know, she keeps everything spotless and beautiful. You know, she's got a china that she values. You know, a really humble but proud existence. And the sons come home. They've all been to university, and they just see a mean little house with people who are ignorant living in it. And the parents, it turns out, had, you know, encouraged their kids to be as different to them as possible, which was selfless of them. And you can see that there's intelligence. I mean, obviously, the only things that these characters can say is what is written down for them, and but you can see that the parents have a dignity and an intelligence, you know, because I think that intelligent people produce intelligent offspring, and I think stupid people produce stupid offspring, and it's not just genetic, but it will be how they're brought up. But these parents had encouraged their kids to be different to them, and they were proud of what their sons had achieved, but they were upset that their sons kind of looked down on them, you know. Oh, poor ignorant parents, they just don't know. And it was really sad. I urge you to, like, if you've got any interest in film, it's on one of the platforms, digital platforms, and it's in colour, so you know. It's a great film, but again, it sort of shows this idea of, I don't know what the parents thought when they were encouraging their kids to be academic, because obviously they would have probably got, I think they got them nighttime tutoring and were just generally encouraging of them, you know, didn't force them to go down and work in the pit as soon as they were of age, which in those days was probably like 14 or 15. They allowed them to continue in education, even though that would have meant a lot of deprivation for themselves. And, you know, did they know that their kids would be so different to them. Did they know that? And if they did, would they have carried on? But basically, they'd made a dystopian, uh, like, family atmosphere. I mean, that's not to say that their sons weren't capable of sort of like, they kind of took off their airs and graces of their status, in their working lives. And they could sort of, take off their shoes and socks and roll up their trouser legs and put their toes in, for the short time that they were home, so that they could, uh, have a pastiche at least of ordinary family life. But they weren't anything like their parents. Their parents had, rightly or wrongly, deliberately or not deliberately, created a dystopian childhood or family life. And yeah, and I just found that interesting, and I think that dystopia, utopia is just like another way of saying good and bad. Uh, I mean, obviously, I think, not obviously, but we imagine dystopian fiction, and films, and well, all fiction, whatever format, as in a certain way. Normally, it's set in the future, uh, and there's been a disaster, there's been a flood, there's been an asteroid, a nuclear war, a disease, these sorts of things. And often the themes can be, oh, if only we'd done that. There's a lot of 2020 hindsight with dystopia. Oh, people saw it coming, but didn't do anything about it. And now look where we are. And it just occurred to me, that's a little bit like the story, the Old Testament story of Noah. I mean, that's a fucking dystopian story, if ever you hear one. I mean, it's not in the Bible story, but can you imagine, like, all the dead stuff floating in the water for months? As the ark is going along through the water, there would have been corpses bloated up everywhere. It would have been horrific. But the world as it was described in the Bible as a dystopia. The people had forsaken God, and were living like dicks. And so, God rained his punishment literally down on mankind, and saved a small elite to start a new world, to start again. A lot of that is, I guess that's another theme of dystopia as well, the idea of renewal. When Big Brother, or whatever you want to call that organisation, in 1984 is formed, they want to sweep away what was before them, and replace it with their idea of utopia, which they do. And I think, I can't remember, it's been a while since I've read 1984, but I think that Winston Smith's unhappiness stems from a small amount of knowledge gleaned from the books that he's and material that he's censoring. A little bit like in Fahrenheit 451, when Guy Montag reads a book for the first time, and he's like, oh shit, he was happy. Well, he wasn't happy, but he was coping up until that point. Quite often in those sorts of novels, you've got the characters almost like an expectant sort of feeling. It's like, there's got to be something more than this. Again, a lot of people think that way. Acceptance of where we are in the world is difficult. I guess so, especially now. I mean, people who live in poor or less developed cultures than my own, if they have access to any format which shows them how I or people in this country live, they must be jealous, but and feeling shit. Uh, but what do they do? Do they try and get here and take a piece of what we have? Well, that's not something I want to get into. But if they hadn't seen how we live, would they be happy with what they have? And I think people are. I think ignorance. I think ignorance can make you happy. I think knowledge can make you unhappy. I've thought that for quite a long time. You know, my own personal trajectory, fucking difficult word anyway, you know what I mean, meant, I failed horribly at school, dyslexic, and, I was just expected to do menial, boring jobs. But unfortunately, I'd been reading books. I didn't learn to read until I was about 10 or 11. And then when I did, it was like, oh my God, and this whole world like expands, or my world expanded. And, and all of a sudden I wasn't satisfied with the idea of being a bin man or a road worker or something. I'm not going to say menial, because I don't think it is menial, because if you've ever actually had any experience of labourers or working class jobs, you'll actually know there's quite a lot of complexity with most jobs. Most jobs are not easy. They take a certain amount of time to master. Some jobs are easier than others, but I couldn't be happy then. I'd lived in a sort of utopia, but then with this burgeoning knowledge, and I'm not that clever. I'm really not. I know that, and I'm happy with where I am and who I am. But even with my small amount of knowledge, I couldn't be happy anymore. I couldn't ever be happy again. And I guess that sort of almost leads to searching for a utopia for the rest of your life. You're always hungry to make the situation perfect. I know I'm rambling here. I'm just talking like just as the ideas come out, really. Uh, so yeah, I'm going to wrap it up there, because I could literally talk forever, and nobody wants that. And yeah, I'll wrap it up. I don't know what I'm going to read for in the coming week to review next week, but I'll find something. I haven't even had the chance to finish reading Legion of the Damned yet. Just like I say, just so busy, and I get home at night and I can't even think straight. I do quite a difficult job, and I'm getting older, and I've got health complications. It's all very sad. But I'll wrap it up by saying that I think utopia, on a personal basis, is achievable. It's a case of being comfortable with yourself and your surroundings. Now, obviously, if you find yourself, because you said something wrong, in a prison, then you are going to be under horrific stress. People will probably, especially nowadays in a kind of radicalised police system, there's going to be people in there that want to murder you, and perhaps will. And then, of course, the mainstream media won't say anything about that. But you can't be happy with your surroundings in there. But you can come to terms with things. I've not been to prison, and I hope I never do. Sounds fucking awful. But I've had difficult times in my life, and you have to you have to get through them, and you have to come to terms with them. And I think that's the same with. I mean, there's no doubt that we are in the UK in September 2024. We are in a full-on dystopia, a emerging tyranny, and it's quite frightening. Uh, you've got, these unwanted, unnecessary medical interventions. You've got strange nanostructures appearing in people's bodies. You've got potential war with various different actors. I don't mean actors like Sylvester Stallone. I mean actors as in political world leader actors. And it's a scary, unpleasant, unsteady time to be alive. There's so many different things that can kill you, or kill your children, take away your way of life. You'll take away your wealth through a nice bit of overtaxation to pay for stupid schemes that will never work. It's but you can you can be you can come to terms with stuff. And while you won't be existing in a utopia, you can build a shield around yourself whilst being in a dystopia. You can, and really, that's all you can do. I mean, it's a bit like I can't remember the name of the character in Brazil, the film. He gets tortured in the old power station cooling tower, and eventually he just goes mad. And in his brain, in his world inside his head, he's with that pretty lorry driver, which is something you never normally say. And they've created a little homestead, away from this glowering, horrible metropolis where the majority of people live. It seems under uncaring, vicious tyranny, and he's just there. He's because he was having holes drilled in him by the baby mask wearing lunatic. He's just had to build this world in his head where nothing can touch him there. And I'm not saying you have to go that far. I mean, if you were being drilled, yeah, you probably would go that far, because I'm getting I'm just diverging here way too much. But personally speaking, I can be relatively happy. I have my bikes, which I love, my push bikes, that is. Yes, I am one of those people in Lycra that everyone hates, although I'm very, very careful about how I interact with other road users, as in I want to be the least encumbrance to their important journey as possible. And I have my books. I enjoy watching films. I enjoy listening to music. I have my memories, which aren't they the most valuable thing? And I know that I can't change anything. I can't change who is in charge of my country. I can't change who polices my country. I can't change anything about it at all. I have no power at all. I only have a small amount of power in my own little bubble. And so I have to satisfy myself with that bubble. That's how I, cope. That's how I carry on. And and really, that's all you can do as an inhabitant of a emerging and rapidly evolving tyranny, dystopic tyranny. That's all you can do. And if things get worse, then I have to reassess my parameters. That's all you can do. That's literally all you can do. Sad times indeed. But anyway, if you've made it this far, honestly, you really do deserve some kind of reward or medal or something. If I could, I would give one to you, but I can't. I haven't got any. I wouldn't know what to put on it. don't even know how to get them made, and then I couldn't afford it either. So just give yourself an imaginary medal. I got to the end of a really boring video that was rambling and talking bollocks, and so give yourself a pat on the back, and goodbye.